was excited. You should be. It's time for an updated 2020 NFL mock draft. Ain't that something? Yeah. I did a 2-round version this time, in part because I'm a Bears fan. We don't have a first-round pick. We have 2 second-round picks. You got to be able to factor my team into the equation somehow, because people are going to ask me, well, the Bears, you think are going to have to go after quarterback. Which one will they have to go after? Well, you can look at the description box and see what I have slated for the Bears with both of their second-round picks. But nonetheless, it's been about 2 weeks since I've done the last one. That's probably the regular cadence I'm going to keep until the end of the regular season. I am just now starting to watch these different prospects. It's going to take me a while before I start formulating full opinions on all of these guys. But here's what's going to stand out. First, looking at the quarterback position, because that's where every draft technically starts. It's where every draft, I emphasize again, technically starts. It's the quarterback position. It's who can be a franchise guy. Does this class have a franchise guy? How many franchise-level guys do they have? And I think those are questions that are still left to be determined. Because when I look at all the big names, I look at Joe Burrow, I look at Tua Tagovailoa, I look at Justin Herbert, I look at Jalen Hurts, I look at Jacob Eason. At this moment in time, is there any one guy that I can truly look at and I can say unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt,
that they have franchise-level stuff? And the simple answer is I don't know yet. I don't know. Because when I've watched a little bit of Joe Burrow, even watching the game Saturday against Alabama, there are moments I look at him and I'm like, he's got Tony Romo level skills. There's no question about that. And if you could take a guy the level of Tony Romo, number 1 overall in the draft, you probably have to do it. Because Romo, at least, you could argue whether or not he was actually ever elite, but he at least was for many years a franchise-level quarterback, a top 8 to 10 guy in the National Football League for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think that can be argued. But I also look at Joe Burrow and I say, is he Mitchell Trubisky? And is he a guy that has to have everything go right for him and all these pieces around him in order for it to make a difference? And you look at Joe Burrow in 2018 compared to 2019, that's where I look at him and I'm like, he could be Romo, he could be Trubisky, he could be anything in between. I haven't watched enough yet to be able to have a full opinion on him, but right now I'm unsure. But what I am sure of is that game against Alabama most certainly did not hurt his draft stock as a big-time opponent on the road with the chips on the line, and the LSU offense had a big day and Joe Burrow had a big day. To me, for those teams that were already thinking about Tua not being the number 1 quarterback in this draft class, and I promise you there are plenty that think that he's not. I think this helped cement it a little bit for Joe Burrow, which is why I have the Ohio kid going number 1 to the Cincinnati Bengals. By God, is there a franchise right now more than them that needs a young quarterback to help kind of change the trajectory of that franchise? I don't think there is. You could even argue the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a couple of wins this year. The Dolphins are a crap show, but they're not the Bengals level of crap show. The Bengals are a total and complete crap show. When I look at the number 2 pick with the Redskins, since they just took Dwayne Haskins last year, it's really going to be really, really hard potentially to pass on Chase Young. But when you look at the Trent Williams situation, you look at ultimately having to protect your young quarterback. For the Redskins, Andrew Thomas from Georgia, at this particular moment, would make a ton of sense. You need to improve your blocking on the perimeter, especially because you're not going to have Trent Williams next year, stand to reason. You need that long-term replacement for him. You got to invest in your young quarterback, and here's the way to do that. Now, you might come back at me and say, well, then why the hell do you have the Giants passing on an offensive lineman or another position like Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Alabama, and taking Chase Young from Ohio State, number 3? Because the simple fact of the matter is when you look at that Giants team, they've invested other first-round picks in the offense, such as Saquon Barkley, such as Evan Ingram. They have invested some resources into that offensive line, and sure, while that can still be better, Chase Young is too special of it for them to pass on. Your Strahan type of defensive fixture, foundational building block for the next decade, Chase Young is probably it. I mean, really, really hard to pass up on him, which leaves the Dolphins at pick 4 wondering what they're going to do. Is quarterback really going to be the pick there? Probably. Could it be possible that as we go through the process, the Miami Dolphins are going to look at it and say, we have a quarterback that we really want, and we want to trade up to number 1 or number 2 to get it? Very possibly, especially for a team that's going to have, 3 first-round picks. They're going to have plenty of draft pick capital. They're going to have draft pick currency. They're going to have enough to be able to make whatever move they want to make in order to get their guy. And I would agree that as badly as the Bengals need it, just a small step behind them, it's the Miami Dolphins. They need that dude. I don't know if they need Marino-level dude, but they need that dude. They need some star power. They need some life in their organization. I don't know if Justin Herbert is that guy, but I don't know that Tua is that guy either. And I look at Justin Herbert right now, as based off of what I've seen of him over the past couple of years. He's that dude that looks the part, but he doesn't always play the part, if that makes sense. He's that dude that you look at him and say, yeah, it makes sense, he should be, but he's not. Like, I can make an argument that there's some similarities between him and a Jordan Love in terms of flaws, yet projectionable tools and skills, and yet I could say for a guy like Jordan Love, who I don't even have going in my top 2 rounds right now, mind you, that Jordan Love might have more appeal and more upside to some teams. There might be some questions about Justin Herbert and whether or not he's really got that dude factor. I look at him and I wonder for NFL teams where in recent years we've seen quarterbacks that aren't the biggest. Mahomes is only 6'2". Watson's barely 6'2". I mean, those guys aren't exactly monsters. You look at Lamar Jackson, he's not a big guy at all. And you look at Kyler Murray, he most certainly is not a big guy at all. You might say, well, what about Baker Mayfield? Well, when Baker plays better, we'll talk about him again. It's not his fault, I agree, to a certain extent. That's on the coach, Freddie Ovens, as I call him. Because I don't know what the hell he's baking in his kitchens. But it can still stand to reason to me that somebody's going to look at a guy like Justin Herbert, even though he's had an injury history that's been sizable and lengthy, that they're going to look at him and say he fits more of the type, and we have more confidence that he's going to be able to stay healthy long term. But really, is he going to? Are his durability concerns any less than Tua with the ankle? Which brings me to Tua. Number 8, Tampa. If there is a quarterback on the board that is even close to registering as being worth taking, they must take him. You've seen enough of Jameis. He's not that dude. It is time to move on. And Tua might be a good guy to do that. Now, I have some concerns about Tua. Mechanically, I have some concerns about him from a pure arm talent standpoint, which might sound crazy, but you also look at it, it's really hard to evaluate a guy at first glance that plays on a team with so much talent around him on the offensive side of the ball. When you look at the fact that he has 3 receivers that are going to be drafted, I would think, relatively high in next year's draft. When you look at the fact you got Najee Harris in the backfield, you got multiple offensive linemen that are going to be drafted. Like, you just look at that team and you say, that's a lot of talent, and how much of that is really him? And the question is I don't know if I can say it. But it has to give you a little pause for concern. No, he's not the reason that they lost the game Saturday against LSU. Not by any stretch of the imagination. You could definitely make the argument that the only reason they even had a chance in that game was because of Tua. And that might very well be true. But the bottom line is I think the tank for Tua, the Tua number 1 talk is probably going to die a quick death. And then it's interesting when you get to pick 15 in Tennessee, Jacob Eason, the quarterback from Washington, used to be at Georgia until Jake Fromm beat him out. You know, I could see him kind of flying under the radar and gaining some momentum as the draft process continues, or I could see him potentially dropping down and end up going in like the 3rd or 4th round. Somebody's going to fall in love with this kid. Somebody's going to really, really like what they see, and somebody's really going to think that they got a steal and got a future franchise quarterback. That's what it looks like, at least early on from the quarterbacks. In terms of the Bears, I have them taking Jake Fromm from Georgia. I'm assuming Fromm declares. I just don't know that he has special talent that necessitates or justifies him being a first-round pick. Once you get into round 2, maybe. Now, maybe the Bears would sit there and say to themselves, we have to get a quarterback no matter what, which obviously would be the right approach. And if they have to trade up into the tail end of round 1 to do so in order to get an extra year on that rookie contract for that quarterback, then so damn be it. For the Bears, it is very simple. And any Bears fan that tells you otherwise is a damn fool. As much as you would like to be able to say you want to focus on the offensive line, you want to focus on edge rushing depth, you want to focus on these other areas. If you do not get a quarterback in this draft or in this offseason, you have nothing. You're just wasting time. So it is quarterback in this draft
damn everything. If there is a guy that you want, then you have to go get him. And frankly, it's not going to matter how many draft picks you give up to go get him. Because if you don't have him, you have nothing, as the Bears are proving this year. In terms of, again, just the overall look at this class, the wide receiver class is going to be really, really good. The offensive line class is really, really good. Not the best year on the defensive side of the ball. Last year was much better on the defensive side of the ball. But there's still some definite studs that you're looking at that could come in and make a big impact right away. Guys like Chase Young, guys like Derrick Brown, just a couple off the top of my head. But you can let me know what you think about my 2-round mock draft. Let me know how crazy and stupid I am. I enjoy and love every minute of it. I will see you again in a couple of weeks for a mock draft again. And in the meantime, stay tuned for other content on this channel. Yeah!